Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Love Baxter Podcast. I'm Adam Greenbaum, the founder of Love Baxter. And today we're talking to Donna Shugart-Bathune, the head of the International Association of Pet Cemeteries and Crematories. How are you?
Great, Adam. Great to be with you today.
I appreciate you being here. You are the expert in all things pet cemeteries and crematories, which isn't always a fun topic, but I think it's a really important topic. For those of you that are new to the show, I founded Love Baxter. We launched in July of 2025. Baxter was a love of my life, my soul dog. He passed away at 12 and a half in October of 2024. And we started this website because I am an entrepreneur who worked with over 10,000 veterinary clinics. And as Baxter got sick and eventually passed away, I was a little bit shocked at the lack of resources that I found as a pet parent. And I've made it my mission in life to now educate pet parents like me who really care about their dogs and cats and rabbits and horses and any animal you have, and wanting to ensure that they have a great life all the way to the end. And most importantly, making sure that their aftercare is taken care of properly. And one of the things that I love so much about you, Donna, is that you have this amazing organization. You care so deeply about your members doing the right things, being certified, handling ashes properly, taking care of pet parents properly. And it is your mission to do sort of the other side of what I'm doing. So I can't thank you enough for being here. Before we jump in, and I want to learn all about you and the organization, and I want to talk about how we can help pet parents. Just a reminder for everyone, please check out lovebaxter.com. Follow us on social media. We post tips. We connect you with amazing pet crematories, in-home euthanasia vets, hospice care, pet photographers, anything you need at the end of your pet's life. So I will stop rambling. And Donna, please tell us about you, how you got into this business, and tell us about your amazing organization.
Thank you, Adam. Well, one, we're so excited to be partnering with Love Baxter. The platform that you've created is amazing, and there's nothing else out there like that. And I really appreciate where you're at with the platform and being able to, make it a really informative experience for pet parents to be able to find everything to do with pet loss. Who we are, who I am the executive director for the IAOPCC. And our association is a nonprofit association made up of pet cemetery and pet crematories owners and operators from not just within North America, but actually worldwide. We're represented in about 17 countries. We have more than 1,400 members that make up our association. And what we really try to do is continue to elevate the standards and ethics and practices in the pet aftercare profession. And we do that through accreditation program that we offer to our members, which is basically a program that highlights different standards and everything from requirements and regulations and ethical practices, whether it's certification and tracking of your the pet throughout the chain of custody process to your facility itself, everything from the safety and the cleanliness and how your pet parents are treated, being able to allow them to view their pet prior to cremation. So there's all these standards that are come within the accreditation program that members agree to go through the process and adhere to. And then we also do that through educational programs. And so we offer ongoing educational programs for our members so they consistently keep their skills and their business practices as best practices within the industry.
That's amazing. And like I worked with vets for so many years, and veterinarians do the same things. And I think when you're a pet parent, you don't want to think about the people that are taking care of your pet's remains. It's not a topic that you want to think about, but as I've been telling people, you have to talk about this. You have to think about this. Now, if you're watching this, I would say probably a top 3 biggest regret in my life is I don't have Baxter's ashes. And he was sick, and he would get better and sick and get better and get sick, and we were chasing diagnoses, we were chasing cancer, and we spent tens of thousands of dollars in the final 6 months of his life. One of the things that I talk about a lot is that my wife and I thought we were making him better. We never for 1 second considered the fact that we were kind of preserving him, but he was dying. And he had he had a general practice veterinarian, he had an internal specialist, and he had a dermatologist. All three are amazing doctors. I love them all. They took amazing care of my boy. They took care of my family. We missed the mark on one thing. No one ever talked to us that, hey guys, he could be dying. And I want you to start planning or thinking about what could happen if this doesn't go well. Even as we were chasing down cancer diagnosis, no one said, hey, if it's this, he's 12 and a half, he might not make it. So there we were, an amazing in-home euthanasia veterinarian. Again, compassionate, kind, communicated well. And I had Baxter's body in my arms, and I was asked, do you want personal cremation, or what's a group cremation, or basically, do you want the ashes back or not? Before I was asked that question, before I could even answer communal, before I even said yes, I want them, she said, and by the way, if you do communal, we do this beautiful ceremony. We put the ashes in the ocean. It's a really beautiful thing. I'm sitting there holding the love of my life who's gone. And I was asked that question. And in the moment, the thought of him going through a cremation process, his ashes, that was a lot to take for me. And I'm usually pretty good on my feet. So I said, well, that sounds like a really beautiful ceremony.
Right.
That sounds great. Let's do it. And I mean, the next morning, the regret and guilt I felt over that, I still feel today. We're going on 9 months now. So I wish our vets had talked about it. I wish I had done more research. I think across the board, I think this is something that pet parents don't think about until it's too late. And yeah, I'm mad at myself to this day. So I think another big part of that is, if the vets aren't talking to me about ashes and how I want to do it, and what happens if I do euthanasia at their clinic and I just walk out the door, which I think most people do. You trust your vet. The vet says, yep, we're going to do cremation today. We have a room. We have chocolate kisses. We're going to light a candle. And then you leave without your pet. You walk out with the leash in your hand. I don't believe the average pet parent even knows what comes next. So maybe you can just talk through, because I've learned a lot from you. I'll let you kind of educate people, but the thought of, do I leave my pet there? Do I take them with me? I imagine for most people, the thought of taking them with them doesn't make sense. Asking, who is your crematory? How did you choose them? Things like that. So can you maybe just educate pet parents who are watching this on how all of that works?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'd love to be able to do that. And Adam, I will say what you experienced is probably 98% of what everyone experiences when they're in the veterinarian's office and they're faced with, a life and death situation, and they're having to make that decision when they go into a euthanasia situation. And so it's not something that we like to think about or talk about, because, that's not something that you want to go there, and it's going to be painful and make that decision early on. But it's so important because it really helps you to make what's the best decision for you and your family. And for every single person, that looks completely different. So when you're within the veterinarian's office and they're giving you those choices, you need to know if you would like the cremains back, because for some people, when you have a private or an individual cremation performed and you get the cremains back, you're actually able to take those cremains and maybe do additional memorization with that. So you can bring your baby home with you, and you can, there's so many different memorial product options that are available that help with the healing process. Also, if you make that decision while you're within the vet's office, you have the opportunity to decide, do I want to bring my baby home with me? Like, what are my options? So a lot of times people don't realize that is your baby, and you have the decision-making process of how you want to handle the aftercare. And so if you're not sure what you want to do, you can decide if you want to use the crematory that your vet currently utilizes, or you can decide, hey, I want to bring them home, and maybe you want to do a burial in the backyard, or maybe you want to have a different facility handle the cremation, or a pet cemetery burial. It gives you options, and you really need to know ahead of time what those options are and what's going to be best for your family. For some people, maybe you have kids at college and they want to come home and they want to be able to say goodbye. And you need a facility that's willing to hold on to the body to allow that to happen because they never got the opportunity to. And there's so many around the country that offer those types of services, and you don't even know that they're available. Everything from just that, process of viewing and going through the grief process there to memorial products that are going to give you comfort for years to come. And so it is good to ask those questions and know upfront what your options are. Discuss it with your family and be able to make those decisions together beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, I just think I think that's the biggest thing. I almost think it's like more welcomed in our society to talk about our parents passing away or family members passing away. People buy burial plots. They create wills and last will and testament and put together
Mhm.
trusts and all of these things. We do all of these things for people, but when it comes to our pet, the idea of them passing away, the idea of us preparing for is it seems like that would be outlandish to do, right? I mean, it wouldn't make sense. And you talk about, like I have a 15-year-old upstairs, and given what we went through with Baxter, we have plans in place. We've talked about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it. We know the crematory we want to use. We know the in-home euthanasia vet we want to use. Like we understand all of that. And we've also put together hey, once she hits this point, we know that we're making that call. And that's a really hard place to get to, because I can hear her toes upstairs right now. Like that little girl is happy and walking around, and we have a death plan for her. That's weird, but also oddly, it feels good. And I wish that more pet parents did that, because you'll actually feel better through the scariness. And I think that's really important. So, look, I've worked with 10,000 plus vets. I never had one talk to me about the crematory they used or how they choose them. So, how does it work? How do vets choose a crematory? How do they, ensure that they have someone that they trust and is reliable? How do they set up the workflow just for pet parents out there, who have a vet? I promise you, if you're watching this, you are in the smallest minority. If you know the crematory that your veterinarian uses,
Mhm.
you should ask them, by the way. If you have a pet that's over the age of 7, no matter the species, you should ask them, just so you have peace of mind. But how do vets choose, and how does that relationship work?
Honestly, for every single, it depends on what area and region of the country that you're in, and it all varies and is different. A lot of times, vets maybe have a local relationship with the pet crematorium, or and they've done some investigative work to find out how their process works and who they're affiliated with. And sometimes, honestly, they don't necessarily do that. So I would not guarantee that every single vet has done the hard investigative part of learning what the pet crematory operations are. And I say that in that it might be that there's only one or two within the area. And so that's who they choose. And so, what you want to look at in a pet crematorium is you want to look at a crematory that has aligned themselves with an association that requires ethical oversight and they agree to best practices. And that's what the IAPC brings to our members, bring to the pet aftercare community. So our members agree to an oversight of ethics and they agree to those best practices and those standards, meaning that, whenever there's an issue or a concern, we actually have a committee that does the investigative work that works with the crematory to make sure that they actually have those procedures into place. So some of the critical things were, making sure that you have a tracking system. And the tracking system is, you're transparent with that. How is the chain of custody of the body from the veterinary clinic, hospital, over to the crematory facility, and how that works throughout the process? If they're allowed to come in, a pet parent's allowed to come in and spend time with their baby before the cremation or the burial takes place, that, these are certain standards that a IOPC member agrees to. And then also that they practice a certain code of ethics, that they agree to honor, that they have grief support available to the pet parent, that they actually are treated with compassion and care, that they have complete transparency where a pet parent can come in and visit the facility, or a veterinary office can come in and visit the facility, and they know exactly what the tracking process is. And I would love to say that every single veterinary hospital does that, but truthfully, they may not, and so oftentimes if you don't ask those questions and find out, and then afterwards you realize, wow, I had all these other options and I didn't know. And the thing that I would encourage every single pet parent to do is to find out who their veterinary hospital uses and do the work. Look at the crematory themselves, their website, go visit, and really understand the process and who is local within your area. And also, I would encourage you to really look at what type of aftercare service that you would like, because that is going to help in the healing process. When you take the time to go through the process of grief, it helps in the healing. So if you honor your pet's body and memory, it really helps you get through the other side of grief, because it is a process and it is a journey that every pet parent goes through.
Yeah, I mean that's really well said, and like I keep saying, the regret I feel about Baxter, I mean they did such a great thing. He passed away in my arms upstairs on our couch, and they bring in a bed, and you take him and you tuck him in and you kiss him, and I actually walked him out to to her car, and she said, "Don't worry, I promise you I'll take good care of your guy. You have my word," and I mean that was it, and yeah, I mean, I took her word for it, and I worked with a very, very reputable in-home euthanasia company, but that was it. And the regret I felt, that day I was a little bit numb, and I woke up the next morning in like a panic, like, wait, what did I do? And it was too late. So yeah, I'm with you on asking those questions. And you're right. It's like when I say I had 3 vets and they didn't talk to me about death, that's one thing. But also, it is on me as Baxter's dad to go investigate all of the options moving forward. And that's really why I started Love Baxter, because Baxter's not the first pet I lost. I had a cat for 15 years named Boots. He was incredible. He was my childhood cat. And when I moved out of the house when I was 16 years old, he came with me and he was my guy. And, I was young when he passed away, and I think maybe 20. And, this was a long time ago. He was sick. We went to Banfield inside of a PetSmart because I didn't know better. They euthanized him right there. I left his body in the room. I walked out of there, and that was a while back, and I didn't know. But now it's not like there was like websites about this stuff. But now we have options. We know things. We can do our own research. You can look up crematories in your area, both just through Google search, through the IAOPC website, through the Love Baxter directory. We have a lot of amazing IAOPC members there, and you can do your own research, and and just put a plan together and let your vet know the plan. Hey, I'm letting you know ahead of time. Can you put it in the notes in your practice management system that when Sophie passes away, this is my plan, this is who I'm doing. And when you make that appointment, also make the appointment with the crematory and say, hey, we're saying goodbye to Sophie Monday at 11 a.m. Can I come see you at 12:30? I'm going to say goodbye, and and yeah, just there's something beautiful about having Sophie sitting next to you on the couch while you're looking at urns, while you're looking at jewelry, while you're thinking about it. I go back and forth too. I have one clay paw print of Baxter. One. We don't have a nose print. We don't have any other clay paw prints. We don't have his ashes. She asked me at the time, "Do you want us to shave some of his hair?" He was a Boston Terrier, had short hair. I said, I don't. Again, you're asking me. This was right before this was after the first injection, which kind of sedates him before the final injection where you say goodbye.
Right.
And it's just a tough time to ask people. And I know that it wasn't malicious. They're smart. They've done this. They know what they're doing. But for me personally, my world was crumbling at that moment. So you could have
Right.
asked me anything I knew the answers to, and it was tough. So yeah, I think what you do with your organization is just so incredible. I worked for years with AHA, which is an organization that accredits veterinary hospitals on things like cleanliness and communication and so many other things to keep them accredited. And I just think this is so important for aftercare, and no one thinks about these things for pets. And it is just unbelievable. But you are literally the world's leader for this, and it is just so great that you're keeping people honest, because recently we saw the thing in Pennsylvania. There are scary situations that happen, and I could never imagine a world where I want any of my pets to be involved in those situations.
And, just kind of going back to one of the things that you said earlier, a lot of times with death of a pet is sometimes your first experience with death. And you don't really realize that. And when you're young, it's your first experience with death. And so and it's especially for pet parents that have children, how you handle that and that very first experience really dictates how you handle death in other areas of your life for the rest of your life. And so if you don't have that education up front of the options that are available and how you want that to be handled, that's going to be best for you and for your family and other family members, then you can really make a difference in their lives moving forward. And I like to say that because a lot of times it's not something that we think about and realize. And then secondly, I think for the accreditation part is so important, because the one thing that I will say, if you choose an IAPC member, those are all things that are already in place and taken care of. And we've done that research for you, right? So, that makes it a little bit easier for you. So using a platform like Love Baxter and being a part of that process and knowing that you have a great place to go for everything that you need in terms of those that have been vetted, those that are members that are accredited, they have the certifications, and those also, whether it's pet loss grief and other options that are available within your platform, are so key and so important. And the last thing I would say, getting to the thing that happened in Pennsylvania with the fraud, unfortunately, it was fraudulent care of about 6,500 pets over a matter of 3 to 4 years, and this was by a human funeral director. And so the sad thing is that affected the lives of all of those pet parents that entrusted their baby to that funeral home. And, not having, those pet parents really are not only, they're having to grieve that loss again because they realize that either those cremains that they have are not their pet, or that they never actually received the cremains back and they're not sure what happened to their pet. And that's lifelong that they're going to deal with that. And so one thing that the IAPC also does is we have a model pet aftercare law. We worked with the state legislators there to create a law within the state of Pennsylvania that can be more protective of pet parents. And they used our law along with our accreditation program to set the standards for what they want within their state. And that's another thing that we do. We advocate for the pet parent and for our members to have the ethical practices that are in place, because unfortunately within our industry, there is not a federal regulated, mandated law or state laws. There's only a handful of states that actually have laws. There's no regulation on pet aftercare facilities. And so if someone local to you is not a member of the association, they really don't have to abide by anything. And that's the sad part, but that's what we're there for. And that's where Love Baxter comes in. That's a platform and a directory that gives you that assurance that these are vetted, accredited facilities that you can count on and be able to go visit, check out further, make your plans, go ahead and make some decisions on how you want that to be handled at the end of your, baby's life.
And if you're a pet parent out there, you should only want to work with veterinary clinics that get certified in the right things. If you're free, cat friendly, things like that. And same thing when you're choosing a cemetery or crematory. You have options. Why would you not choose the option that is chosen to work with the leading association for this, and going through an accreditation process? I mean, that just shows a level of care that not every business does. And man, is that just so important in every business on earth, let alone something like this where you're talking about the aftercare of a pet. And like you said, the regret I feel over not having Baxter's ashes or really any other memorabilia. And look, we have stuff, and we have his leash. We have his paw print. We have a couple other meaningful things. We've kept some of his toys, and it's great. We have a puppy in the house, and we watch Cosmo playing with Baxter's toys, and it means the world to us. But yeah, I'm sad, and I'm mad at myself for not thinking about this, and maybe taking some steps earlier on. I have one last question for you. This is one of the most searched things on our website. So we have a search bar on Love Baxter. We've got thousands of resources. You can search anything. And I was showing Donna this morning the top searches this week. In the top 5, you had urns, cremation, remains. You have all of these keywords. The top search thing in the last month since we've launched has been fire cremation versus water cremation. I don't want to ask where you stand on that, because I think both work, both are great, both are options. It's for each person. But, for people who are wondering, because again, I cannot believe how much people search fire versus water cremation. What are the quick hits? What do people need to know about that? Because they're searching so much for it on our website.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that question. I think a lot of times there's so much mystery around both. And honestly, the one thing that I would tell you with fire cremation, a lot of times people feel that's like really harsh. And, what you have to understand is with fire cremation, it's a crematory. And so the fire itself is around the walls of the crematory. And so it's through the intense heat that the body's broken down. It's the exact same process that's going to happen, if you were to bury a pet in the ground. So it just quickens the process. So it's the same thing where you actually receive the skeletal remains of your baby back. So you're getting your baby back to you. And the reason I state that is a lot of times there's such a misconception regarding, the cremation itself. And so it's basically just quickening the process. It's going to happen naturally if you were to bury your baby. With water cremation, it's really the same type of concept, only it's using water and a solution of alkaline hydrolysis. Same thing, it just quickens the process of what's going to happen to the body naturally if you were to place the body in the ground. And, so the difference between the two really is just the process itself, but you are going to get the same result in the sense of the skeletal remains back of your baby. So it's the same, again, process that would happen if you were to do a burial of your pet, and it just quickens the process. There's a lot of back and forth over which one, would be better, whether it's environmentally better this way or environmentally, safer, another way. I mean, honestly, there's so many environment through the EPA, there's so many regulations on crematories now that they have to abide by in terms of permitting. So that's something that, is really, it's green friendly in that regard. And the same thing, with the alkaline hydrolysis, water cremation is what we call it. There's so many regulations in terms of the process and the permitting process that's really taken care of through that process. So it's really just, what you as a pet parent, again, want in terms of how you want to take care of the body of your pet. But just know that both processes are just quickening the process that's naturally going to happen.
Okay, that's really helpful. I mean, it was even helpful for me to hear it again, and I've done a lot of research on this because I don't know. I think for me as a pet parent, I would probably my number one concern would be I want to work with a crematory that is accredited, that works with IAOPCC, and just does the right things. That would be my number one priority before even thinking about that. But yeah, the search volume on that has just been unbelievable, which is really interesting. It tells me that, you and I need to partner on more content about that, and more education about that for pet parents. I can't thank you enough for coming on, for being a friend through this process, for, providing inspiration and helping with Love Baxter. These animals are my life. I wear this hat not to be unprofessional on, on podcasts and webinars, I got my Boston Terrier hat here. Baxter was a red Boston Terrier. Sophie's a black and white. Cosmo is a brindle Boston Terrier. We're a Boston Terrier family, and they're our life. And I want people to know that. And I think conversations like this, it's hard to have, but I feel at ease when I talk to you, even though this is, we're talking about, the body of my pets breaking down. I feel at ease because, if you're watching this and you're a pet parent, this is going to happen. You can't outrun this. So you have to talk about it. You have to prepare for. As I hear Sophie's, toe taps upstairs, walking to her water bowl right now. I'm glad that I'm prepared for this. I'm glad that we have these conversations. Thank you for everything you're doing. Thank you to your members who are amazing and take the time to get accredited and work with you. I think that's so important. How can people watching this learn more about you and the organization and find out more?
Well, first, Adam, thank you so much for what you're doing within this the profession and industry. The platform you've created is amazing, and it's a great opportunity for pet parents that are going through loss or even anticipatory loss, to get the education all in one place. That's so very much needed. So I really am grateful to you and grateful for our partnership together in this. I thank you very much. And then as far as being able to find out more about the IAPC, who we are, what we do with our members. And also we have a whole section on just pet parents and what to look for as well. You just visit us at IAOPCC.com and you will, get some additional information. And also we do have a directory of those that are located not only within North America, but worldwide as well.
That's awesome, and we'll put those links in the show notes here, so everyone has access to them. Listen, if you're seeing this on YouTube or social media and you have questions, just comment. I'll make sure they get to Donna. We'll answer questions and get there to you. But again, Donna, thank you so much for everything you do. If you're out there watching, thank you for the support of Love Baxter. Thanks for being an educated pet parent, and by even watching this video and having to have these hard conversations, and you know just keep staying strong and appreciate you all.